G'day, my name is Elfreda, Jonker. I'm the Client Portfolio Manager at Alphinity Investment Management. Today I have Stephan with me. He's one of the founders and also Portfolio Manager on our Australian teams. Today we will be reflecting on the outlook for global commodities and how we are positioned going forward. So Stephan, it's been a very volatile year for global commodities. Most of the base and bulk metals are down here to date, and if I look at spot prices, it does suggest that there's more downside for analysts' forecasts. So what is going on and how do you see it playing out for the remainder of the year?
Lots going on. You're right, actually, it's been a pretty challenging year. You have a background of a global slowdown, which is certainly kind of providing a concern about the demand outlook for all commodities. And then you've had China, which has been incredibly volatile. And as we know, it's the incremental growth of demand typically over the last few years. And so everybody's looking at what's happening in China. We've been going through quite a few periods. Last year, you had the concerns about COVID lockdowns and therefore the slowdown on the growth. Then from November, you had the social unrest in the streets, which meant that China opened up and went for a herd immunity as quickly as possible. And that pushed demand up in the first quarter, and price expectations went up quite a lot at that time. But now, second quarter is actually quite slow. I was there in China in March, and it's quite clear that the confidence of the buyer is not there. They have not been helped in the same way that we've had it here in the Western world, where the government supported the consumers, but also lower interest rates didn't kind of result in net wealth increase in terms of housing for the buyers. So there is a lack of confidence happening. As you mentioned, in terms of commodity prices have gone down. We have the market adjustments in line with it. Now, if you look at spot prices, there is a bit more downside to commodity prices and therefore to earnings of resources, but not a huge amount. A lot has kind of been priced in already. But there is still some. So downside risk mainly. We have been underweight resources and energy for most of the year. We've kind of increased our underweight in oil, and we have also switched a little bit in resources, but we've remained quite significantly underweight throughout that period.
So if we just focus a little bit on China and post your visit there earlier in the year, since then we've received quite a few economic data prints, and the majority of those have actually been a little bit softer than most people are expecting, particularly on the infrastructure investment side. So what is your outlook from that, and specifically on the commodities that's important for us here in Australia and how we invest?
Yeah, so the data has been weaker since April. So the first quarter actually was pretty good. And that's, in hindsight, now restocking, which has happened at that time. And the underlying data so far has been weaker since April. Infrastructure is actually okay. It's the property side of the business of the country where the sales are not as strong as one could expect given the COVID reopening, and that's flowing through across the activities. So it's gone to such a weakness now that there is increased expectation that the government will stimulate and boost basically the activity in the second half. Now, will that kind of result in an increase in spending is to be seen, given the confidence issue I raised beforehand. Infrastructure, they will continue to push it. I think what could potentially happen is some sectors will benefit more than others. Steel, it's hard to see given that you have potentially a steel production cap and therefore iron ore upside is limited. But EVs could potentially be subsidized a bit more in the second half, and that could kind of push more the lithium space.
Okay, so we've started to see some of the stimulus come through on the monetary policy side in China, so let's hope for a lot more from them in the next few days. If we change tack and look forward from here, What is your thinking around how you want to be positioned, and if there are any specific commodities or companies that you would like to have exposure to as we head into the second half of 2023?
I think the way we are positioned for the moment is the right one. We are underweight because of these earnings downgrades coming in. So what is going to be changing in the second half? If the stimulus comes in, does it mean that iron ore goes much further up from here? Hard to see if there is a steel cap production. A cap on the steel production. The one space where we have lifted a bit of positioning is lithium, as I mentioned earlier on. We were cautious when the destocking was happening in batteries in China. I think that has taken place. And if there is a bit of a stimulus, that could kind of lift the space more. We've lifted recently our position in IGO, and we've taken a position in Pilbara. Pilbara is a pure play on the lithium side with a strong balance sheet and very strong growth. So that's a sector that we like, where we could have more exposure depending on how things go. Mineral sands through Iluka is a sector which they have good pricing power and good control on the cost, so we like that. And as I mentioned, the iron ore, we're more on the neutral side. We have BHP and FMG there, underweight in Rio. And again, it's going to be really a question of whether we see a translation of that stimulus, if it comes, into an actual lift in the activity there. We've had a lot of false starts, so I think seeing actually a bit of that lift before anticipating it is whether it's actually coming through would be the right thing given the confidence of the consumer. But the one shift probably is the lithium space where we're getting incrementally positive.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Stephan. Quite a tricky environment to navigate. For more information from Stephan and the rest of the team, please visit alphinity.com.au. Thank you.
Thank you.